Part 1. The War Within. Disregard temptation. Those two words define every man who ever achieved lasting power. Because temptation isn't just desire, it's distraction disguised as pleasure. It whispers, "You deserve this," when in truth, it's stripping you of control. The moment you start chasing what glitters, you stop ruling yourself. Machiavelli understood this. A prince who lets his passions rule him becomes the slave of his people. When emotion wins, reason dies. When pleasure governs you, purpose decays. Every empire, internal or external, collapses from indulgence before it falls to enemies. Temptation doesn't always wear a red dress. Sometimes it looks like comfort, like validation, like that easy path that requires nothing but costs everything. The strong learn early. What feels good now weakens you later. The first Machiavellian rule of control is simple: never negotiate with your impulses. When you justify temptation, you're already losing. The mind rationalizes, just this once. I deserve a break. No one will know. But those small permissions are how great men dissolve into mediocrity. You must treat desire like an enemy spy. Question its purpose, trace its source, then destroy it before it infiltrates your mind. Because temptation never comes to serve you. It comes to distract you, to keep you from building the kind of focus that makes others fear your silence. Think of the battlefield inside you. Temptation advances softly, wearing the armor of your own wants. But the Machiavellian mind knows, if you control the inner war, no outer enemy can touch you. Your discipline is your fortress, your restraint the wall that protects your throne. Every time you say no, you sharpen your will. Every time you resist, you build strength that others spend their lives wasting. Power is energy, and weak men give it away chasing shadows of pleasure. The strong conserve it, redirect it, refine it. Temptation thrives in moments of boredom, loneliness, and pride. It feeds on attention, but when you disregard it completely, when you give it no audience, it withers. You'll notice something. The more you ignore it, the more others begin to sense your focus, your mystery, your self-command. Machiavelli would say, "The man who cannot command himself will command nothing." So train yourself to see temptation not as sin, but as a test. The weak seek escape. The strong find clarity in denial. What you resist doesn't control you, it obeys you. So disregard temptation. Not once, not occasionally, always. Because control is not found in avoiding battle. It's found in winning it daily, within yourself. Part 2. The Mask of Desire. Temptation is never honest. It pretends to serve you while plotting to own you. Like a false ally in Machiavelli's court, it flatters you, offers comfort, and waits until your guard is down. The most dangerous temptations aren't the ones that scream, they're the ones that whisper. Machiavelli warned rulers to study deceit, not to become evil, but to survive it. The same applies to your own desires. Study your temptations. Know how they operate, what triggers them, what promises they make. When you understand the pattern, you can dismantle it. Desire is a negotiator. It doesn't strike fast. It persuades. It tells you that giving in is harmless, that indulgence is freedom. But that's the trick. Temptation always rebrands slavery as liberty. Every time you yield, your will weakens. Every time you surrender, you teach your mind to obey its own cravings. Control isn't built on endless denial. It's built on clarity. The man who knows why he denies something becomes unstoppable. You don't say no to pleasure because it's wrong. You say no because it's beneath you, because you have higher aims, because pleasure will come to you naturally once you no longer need it. Machiavelli's prince never chased admiration. He made others chase his approval. Likewise, never chase your desires. Force them to orbit you. The more self-contained you are, the more reality bends to your gravity. This is the power of the man who disregards temptation. He's not cold, he's composed. He doesn't repress, he redirects. Every impulse he denies becomes energy he can use to build, strategize, and command. What others waste in lust, he forges into focus. Your wants are tools. Use them or be used by them. When you master your impulses, you begin to influence others without them even realizing it. Because people sense control, they feel your energy shift when you stop chasing. You become unpredictable, unreadable, and therefore respected. Temptation wants to define you. Don't let it. Instead, define yourself by what you withstand. Machiavelli understood the art of appearing in control even when chaos brewed beneath. You must do the same. Hold composure under desire's fire. And when you conquer that, the world becomes quiet. You move differently. You speak less. You act with precision. Because the man who has overcome his cravings is no longer part of the crowd. He stands above it. Disregard temptation, not because it's evil, but because it's irrelevant to your destiny. Part 3. The mind as a fortress. Your mind is a fortress, not a temple, not a playground, a fortress. Every temptation that comes to you is an invading army, testing your walls for cracks. When you give in to lust, you are not indulging. You are surrendering the gates to the enemy. The Machiavellian mind understands this. Control is not about suppressing desire, but about mastering it. The most dangerous men in history were not the ones without desire. They were the ones who could channel it like a weapon. When the weak man feels temptation, he scrambles for distraction, a new image, a moment of pleasure, an excuse. The strong man does not flinch. He feels the fire rise and simply watches it burn without feeding it. Because he knows this, the mind only breaks when you fight the fire, not when you observe it. Disregard temptation. That phrase must become your creed. It's not about pretending it doesn't exist. It's about refusing to give it importance. The moment you care about temptation, it wins. The moment you start to justify your craving, it digs deeper into your psyche. Power comes from indifference, the kind that says, I could have it if I wanted, but I choose not to. That single thought turns you from slave to master. You see, the human mind is a battlefield of chemical impulses. Lust, hunger, anger, all of them are signals, not commands. Nature designed them to keep you alive, not to make you powerful. Civilization made them accessible, abundant, and addictive. To rise above the masses, you must treat your impulses like unreliable messengers. They bring you information, but they do not give you orders. If the fortress of your mind is unguarded, every whisper of temptation becomes a siege weapon. But when you strengthen your discipline, when you observe instead of obey, temptation becomes something else entirely, energy. It's the same energy that built empires, forged revolutions, and conquered continents. The same fire that drives lust can drive greatness, if you refuse to let it rule you. Most men are afraid of desire. They think they must kill it to stay pure. But suppression is just weakness in disguise. Machiavelli would laugh at that. True control lies in transforming desire into strategy. You take that same energy that demands pleasure and use it to build something lasting. Your body, your business, your legacy. Every time you resist the easy satisfaction, you reclaim a piece of your sovereignty. You forge yourself into something sharper, colder, untouchable. Temptation doesn't disappear. It adapts. It waits. It whispers that you've earned a break, that you deserve reward, that one slip won't matter. But every indulgence is a withdrawal from your own power. Every time you give in, you teach your body that pleasure outranks purpose. The mind is only as strong as the last battle it won. The man who controls his desires controls everything else. That is the root of Machiavellian mastery. For power is never taken by those who obey their impulses. It belongs to those who learn to bend those impulses into submission. So, ask yourself, are you the ruler of your mind or the servant of your cravings? Because in the fortress of your mind, every choice builds or breaks the walls. Part 4. The currency of desire. Power always comes at a price. The question is, what are you willing to trade? Most men spend their lives bankrupting themselves on desire. They invest their time, their focus, their will, all for a brief surge of pleasure that leaves them emptier than before. You cannot master life if you are constantly broke in discipline. Temptation is the world's oldest economy. Lust is its most profitable export. Every image, every click, every passing glance, all of it designed to make you pay attention, and attention is the most valuable currency you own. The Machiavellian mind knows that the real cost of lust isn't guilt, it's the loss of direction. Imagine desire as gold. You can waste it on trinkets and fleeting luxuries, or you can invest it into something that multiplies your power. Every urge you control becomes stored energy, compound interest for your focus. When you ignore temptation, you don't lose pleasure, you gain leverage. You are not repressing, you are redistributing your power to something that matters. This is the paradox. The more you chase desire, the weaker it makes you. But when you hold your ground and deny it, it begins to chase you. The disciplined mind emits an energy that others can sense. They can't explain it, but they feel it. People are drawn to the man who doesn't flinch, who isn't moved by cheap thrills. Control radiates presence, and presence bends the world in your favor. To disregard temptation is to step outside the game that everyone else is trapped in. Society runs on distraction, endless cycles of stimulation to keep you docile, predictable, and powerless. Every time you scroll, every time you give in, you're feeding a system designed to own you. Machiavelli would tell you, to be free, you must know what enslaves you. That's why indifference is your weapon. Not hate, not denial, indifference. When temptation tries to seduce you, respond with stillness. Let it parade before you and remain unmoved. There is nothing more threatening to the world than a man who cannot be bought by his own desires. The lust of the body is temporary. The lust for control, for mastery, that's eternal. One burns you from within. The other forges you into something unbreakable. Choose the one that endures. To disregard temptation is not to reject humanity. It's to rise above its manipulation. You are not meant to crawl through life reacting to impulses. You are meant to dominate them, redirect them, and make them kneel to your will. Every time you deny the easy pleasure, you make a statement to the universe. I am not yours to control. And that, more than anything else, terrifies those who profit from your weakness. Part 5. The Discipline of Shadows. Discipline isn't built in light. It's forged in shadow, when no one's watching, when the world sleeps, when the voice in your head whispers, no one will know. That's when the true battle begins. Machiavelli understood that virtue performed in public is a performance. Power, however, is earned in secrecy, in those unseen wars between your will and your weakness. Temptation thrives in silence because it believes no one will witness your surrender. But the Machiavellian mind knows the truth. You are always watching. The version of yourself that could have been, the one with sharper focus, colder resolve, watches every time you give in. And each time you do, he turns away. Each time you don't, he stands taller. To disregard temptation is to live by law when no law exists. It's to become your own ruler, your own enforcer, your own sovereign. When you can control yourself without threat or reward, you ascend beyond the reach of manipulation. The world's systems, religion, media, politics, all depend on your lack of control. They feed on your impulses. A man who no longer answers to them cannot be owned. You must think of your mind as a kingdom under constant siege. The invaders are not armies, but urges, lust, greed, vanity, each promising pleasure, each demanding loyalty. Most men surrender their kingdoms without a fight, kneeling before the first craving that stirs in them. But the ruler who survives is the one who builds walls of patience, moats of silence, towers of awareness. To master temptation is to understand it. It's not the enemy, it's a teacher. Each desire reveals where you are weakest. If lust consumes you, then discipline is the blade you must sharpen. If pleasure blinds you, abstinence is the torch you must carry. You cannot destroy what you do not study. The Machiavellian mind studies temptation like a strategist studies his opponent, not with fear, but fascination. When you disregard temptation, you are not ignoring life's pleasures. You are declaring that pleasure will arrive on your schedule. You will not move until it serves your plan. This is the discipline of shadows, doing nothing when your body demands everything. Because the true mark of control is not resistance. It's refusal without effort. The desire arises, and you let it die without touching it. That is sovereignty. You must remember, every time you defeat temptation, you do not merely abstain, you accumulate. You grow heavier with power, colder in focus, clearer in purpose. The weak call this repression. The strong call it transformation. A man who controls his urges is a man who can reshape the world. And in silence, in those long hours where temptation whispers and you do not answer, you are building something more valuable than pleasure, unshakable command. Part 6. The Mirror of Power. Power has a strange reflection. It doesn't show you what you are, it shows you what still controls you. When you stare into the mirror and feel temptation rise, what you're seeing isn't weakness. It's the residue of influence, the part of you that still answers to something outside yourself. Machiavelli would tell you, a prince who cannot command himself will never command his state. Lust is not a sin, it's a signal. It points to what you crave, what you think you lack. It reveals your dependency. The lust for attention, validation, beauty, all of it comes from believing something out there will complete you. That illusion is how power is stolen from men. Because when you want something badly enough, you've already given it permission to own you. To disregard temptation is to break that illusion. To say, I am already whole, you deny the world its leverage. The moment you no longer need, you become untouchable. People who cannot control themselves seek control over others, but those who master themselves already have it. The game ends where discipline begins. Every seduction, every test, every flash of desire, they are all mirrors. They show you how easily your focus can be redirected. A Machiavellian thinker watches his reactions the way a general studies troop movements. If you can predict where temptation strikes, you can fortify your defenses before the battle begins. Ask yourself, what would happen if you never chased another impulse? How much time would you gain? How much control would return to you? The answer terrifies most people, because it means they'd have no excuse left for mediocrity. The mind without temptation is pure strategy. Every decision becomes intentional. Every movement is directed. Temptation's true purpose is not to make you fall. It's to measure your readiness for power. Each time you resist, the test gets harder because your potential grows stronger. The universe sharpens men through denial. It withholds pleasure until you've proven you can command it without worshiping it. To disregard temptation, then, is to train your hunger, not kill it. You let it exist, but you decide where it feeds. The man who denies lust becomes capable of deeper desire, not for flesh, but for mastery, conquest, and creation. The energy once wasted becomes a storm behind your eyes, invisible, but unstoppable. In the end, the mirror of power reflects one truth. Those who own themselves need not rule others to feel powerful. Their presence alone shifts the balance of every room they enter. Because the man who cannot be tempted cannot be moved. And the one who cannot be moved controls all that moves around him. Part 6. The Mirror of Power. Power has a strange reflection. It doesn't show you what you are. It shows you what still controls you. When you stare into the mirror and feel temptation rise, what you're seeing isn't weakness. It's the residue of influence, the part of you that still answers to something outside yourself. Machiavelli would tell you, a prince who cannot command himself will never command his state. Lust is not a sin, it's a signal. It points to what you crave, what you think you lack. It reveals your dependency. The lust for attention, validation, beauty, all of it comes from believing something out there will complete you. That illusion is how power is stolen from men. Because when you want something badly enough, you've already given it permission to own you. To disregard temptation is to break that illusion. To say, I am already whole, you deny the world its leverage. The moment you no longer need, you become untouchable. People who cannot control themselves seek control over others, but those who master themselves already have it. The game ends where discipline begins. Every seduction, every test, every flash of desire, they are all mirrors. They show you how easily your focus can be redirected. A Machiavellian thinker watches his reactions the way a general studies troop movements. If you can predict where temptation strikes, you can fortify your defenses before the battle begins. Ask yourself, what would happen if you never chased another impulse? How much time would you gain? How much control would return to you? The answer terrifies most people, because it means they'd have no excuse left for mediocrity. The mind without temptation is pure strategy. Every decision becomes intentional. Every movement is directed. Temptation's true purpose is not to make you fall. It's to measure your readiness for power. Each time you resist, the test gets harder because your potential grows stronger. The universe sharpens men through denial. It withholds pleasure until you've proven you can command it without worshiping it. To disregard temptation, then, is to train your hunger, not kill it. You let it exist, but you decide where it feeds. The man who denies lust becomes capable of deeper desire, not for flesh, but for mastery, conquest, and creation. The energy once wasted becomes a storm behind your eyes, invisible, but unstoppable. In the end, The mirror of power reflects one truth. Those who own themselves need not rule others to feel powerful. Their presence alone shifts the balance of every room they enter. Because the man who cannot be tempted cannot be moved, and the one who cannot be moved controls all that moves around him. Part 7. The Crown of Restraint. Restraint is the crown that no one wants to wear. It doesn't glitter, it doesn't dazzle, but it commands more respect than any display of excess ever could. Machiavelli understood that true rulers do not need to flaunt their control. Their silence radiates it. When you master restraint, you stop chasing, explaining, performing. You become the gravity that pulls others toward you, not through motion, but through stillness. Temptation, whether it's lust, pride, or power itself, thrives on urgency. It whispers, now or never. It convinces you that delay means loss. But the Machiavellian mind knows that time is a weapon. Every second you delay is a second the world bends closer to your rhythm. Restraint breaks the illusion of scarcity. The moment you can wait, calmly, without trembling, you prove that you are not bound by need. Every empire falls from indulgence, not exhaustion. Kings who cannot control their desires lose their kingdoms to those who can. History is filled with conquerors destroyed by what they craved most. The woman they couldn't resist, the luxury they couldn't limit, the ego they couldn't silence. Their fall was never from weakness of body, but weakness of restraint. To disregard temptation is not to starve yourself of life. It's to dine on your own terms. To choose when and how you will indulge. Because when you rule yourself, nothing in this world can dictate your appetite. That is the power that terrifies others. The calm certainty of a man who needs nothing and therefore cannot be bribed, seduced, or broken. The crown of restraint is invisible, but everyone feels its weight. People sense when they cannot move you. They grow uneasy around stillness, because it reminds them of their own chaos. The Machiavellian man uses this unease as influence. He speaks little, but his silence stretches across every room, commanding attention without demand. You must train your impulses the way a general trains his soldiers, to move only when ordered. Every moment of restraint sharpens authority. Every temptation denied forges self-command. The weak think restraint is repression. The wise know it is redirection. The art of turning fire inward until it becomes fuel for something greater. When you wear the crown of restraint, you do not announce it. You live it. You move through temptation the way a lion moves through a field of sheep, aware, unbothered, untouchable. Because the crown does not make you powerful, it proves you already were. Part 8. The Silent Emperor. Power, in its highest form, doesn't roar. It doesn't chase. It doesn't explain. It simply is. The silent emperor doesn't command through words, but through presence. The invisible authority of someone who has mastered every war within. Machiavelli would call this virtue, the strength to shape fortune by bending oneself first. You began this journey believing temptation was your enemy. Now you see it for what it truly is, your final teacher. It showed you every crack in your armor, every weak link in your control. And by disregarding it, not running, not indulging, but standing before it unshaken, you sealed those cracks with discipline. The silent emperor understands that control is not taken, it is accumulated. One ignored impulse at a time, one quiet refusal after another. You build power slowly, invisibly, until one day, the same urges that once commanded you now kneel before your will. That is the essence of Machiavellian mastery, ruling not through resistance, but through complete sovereignty over desire. Temptation will never disappear. It will follow you like a shadow, testing you in every new form, through beauty, flattery, opportunity. But the man who has embraced the shadow no longer fears it. He has learned to walk beside it. Because the power you gain from restraint isn't purity, it's focus. It's clarity sharp enough to cut through illusion. When others fall to pleasure, you remain still. When others argue, you remain silent. When others crave attention, you disappear. And in that stillness, people begin to orbit you. They project their fascination, their desire, their confusion, because what they cannot read, they cannot control. The Machiavellian path ends not in domination, but in self-possession. You do not conquer the world by force. You let it adjust to your silence. The emperor who shouts invites rebellion. The emperor who whispers invites obedience, but the one who says nothing commands without effort. You must remember, every man who gives into temptation becomes predictable. Every man who disregards it becomes a mystery. And mystery, more than any weapon, is what sustains power. So when the voice of desire calls again, softly, persuasively, let it speak. Let it promise, let it burn. And then, without hesitation, walk past it. Because power does not respond to the call of weakness. Walk in silence. Command in restraint. Rule yourself, and the world will follow.